Hello, this is Dave Hurwitz here to talk to you about Luciano Berio's Sinfonia. Have you heard this yet? Ooh, you're in for a ride, let me tell you. Sinfonia is probably Berio's orchestral masterpiece, although he wrote quite a few other major works for orchestra, and they are remarkable pieces all. Now, Berio was a composer of the 20th century avant-garde, of the kind that we tend to disparage nowadays. And some might think his music is dated. I tend to think not. His music is largely atonal, but not because he cared about atonality per se, but because he was pursuing new sounds and new textures and new ways of constructing large works, often pieces that refer in some way to our musical tradition, to the past, to contemporary politics. Sinfonia is all of those things. It's part political protest. The second movement consists of Martin Luther King's name, sung and spoken and pronounced in various ways. The third movement, which is one of the most remarkable pieces in all of 20th century music, consists of the entire scherzo of Mahler's Second Symphony, on top of which is grafted the history of Western music as we know it. Pieces, both familiar and unfamiliar, of every type come and go, while the Mahler plays like a stream underneath it all, sometimes coming to the surface, sometimes being submerged. And on top of that, you have 8 soloists. It was originally written for large orchestra and the swingle singers. 8 soloists who sing and speak and recite notes, and sometimes they're singing the Mahler, sometimes they're reciting the words of a play. There's a tenor who does a quasi-narration of the whole thing throughout, and sometimes you hear him and sometimes you don't. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing thing. And after that, after the climax of the Mahler 2, on top of which you hear a voice screaming about poverty and starvation and hunger, and it's gut-wrenching. There's a sort of dazed epilogue, which was originally the end, but then afterwards Berio added a final movement to try and summarize the entire content of the work, making 5 movements in all, actually. Now, I saw Sinfonia and fell in love with it back in the 70s when it was performed at Yale with Berio himself conducting. The Yale Symphony Orchestra did it with the swingle singers. And I had no idea what was coming. I had gone to see La Mer, which was the other thing on the program, that Berio was conducting. And I was sitting up in the second balcony at Wolsey Hall, which was a wonderful concert hall with a beautiful acoustic and a bunch of wooden chairs, every one of which squeaked whenever you sat down in it. And that was another problem. It was, all these people show up, and these 8 singers with microphones, and I didn't know what to expect. And then the thing went, and it absolutely blew me away. Sitting behind me were a bunch of sort of geeky guys from the Yale School of Music with these enormous scores, and they were all gathered around following it. It was huge. It was this massive manuscript score thing. And there were other people who were fleeing for the exits. It was such a great experience. It is, in a way, a political statement of the 60s, but I don't think this music is dated at all. I think it is just as fresh and vibrant and impactful as you'll ever know. And it's been recorded a remarkable number of times, 7 or 8 times. I think I've heard all of them. Now, Berio himself did the first recording, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful, except that at that point he hadn't finished the work. It's missing its final movement. So Berio's performance can't really be the one that we recommend first and foremost. And I'm going to go through the rest of them. Now, there are a couple I'm not going to pay much attention to, and 4 that I will. The other 2, there was one with Josip Pons on Harmonia Mundi that came and went. Maybe it's still around somewhere. And Semyon Bychkov did it for Philips, believe it or not, with the Orchestre de Paris, a performance that left absolutely no impression on me whatsoever. So I'm not quite sure what to make of that. But there are 4 others, 2 of which I think are great and 2 of which are a little more problematic. But you may encounter them, so you should be forewarned. So the first is, I mean, you'd think it would be great, is Peter Eötvös with the Gothenburg Symphony. Now, I was expecting a lot from this. It's on Deutsche Grammophon. Eötvös is a great 20th century music conductor. He also did a really cool Beethoven's Fifth, by the way. The problem with this performance is that it's just too soft. It's too soft-edged, especially in that great third movement. You know, it's like an Ives collage. You want to hear, there are tunes in there, you want to hear them come to the surface. I mean, there's one point where Der Rosenkavalier meets La Valse, meets Mahler, meets La Mer. You know, you want those fragments to bob to the surface and submerge so that, like little flitting visions or cuts in a newsreel, you know? But this is all, it's not that it isn't clear, it's just that nothing is differentiated from anything else. And that's also true in the outer movements. I mean, it's just not a very vigorous, impactful performance, and it doesn't sound like the music is trying to say something, especially in these outer movements, which are basically atonal and gestural. I mean, they're full of sort of sound statements, objects, you know, these collage things or mobiles, whatever you want to call them. They're easy to remember because they have such a distinctive timbre and because they come back and they're wonderfully evocative coloristically. But you know, you have to play them with more conviction than Eötvös manages. I'm sorry, that's how I feel about it. You know, one of the things about some of this avant-garde music is that we think that, you know, it all sounds the same and that one performance is sort of like another. But with a work like this, it's been recorded now 7 or 8 times, and we can hear and we can compare. We realize that, like any other great music, there are idiomatic performances and less idiomatic performances. There's, you know, performances that really, really show that the people worked and that the interpreters understand it, and some that seem more routine. And this is surprisingly, Eötvös here, surprisingly routine. Shame on you. Here, shame on you, Mr. Eötvös. Next, the most recent one. This is an SACD. If you want it in surround, it may sound different. I heard it in regular stereo. This is with the Finnish Radio Symphony Orchestra and Hannu Lintu conducting. And this is a very good performance. It's sort of like the Eötvös in that the surface is fairly uniform, but it's just better played. It's more emphatically conducted. It's better sonically, and it makes a big difference. It really is. It's not my favorite version, but it makes sense, you know, as an interpretation. And, you know, it reflects, I wrote in the original review on classicstoday.com, you know, it reflects the fact that the piece has almost sort of entered the repertoire. It's no longer a shocking statement like it was, and I guess we've lost something there. But on the other hand, we've gained something in terms of sheer performability and the opportunity to hear the music more frequently. And that's a good thing. There are always trade-offs, aren't there? Next, there's one that I have in the closet with my Guiro. It's in Connecticut somewhere, but I know it well. It's Pierre Boulez. He recorded it for Erato, and it's a very fine performance. The only issue with it, it's really one of my 2 recommended ones, is that the tenor soloists in the third movement is highlighted to an unusual extent. And you may like that because it imposes on the music an actual narrative. You hear one specific person with one specific thread of text and meaning, and I think that could be enormously helpful in helping you to sort of triangulate your way through the music. On the other hand, you may just want to hear more of everything else and less of this guy who's very, very good. You know, at the very end, you know, the tenor soloist thanks the conductor. You know, that's with "Thank you, Mr. Boulez," or "Thank you, Mr. whoever it is," and it sounds really like something happened. You know, something meaningful was conveyed, and I like that. But I don't pull that out all the time because there's just so much more music in there that, you know, Boulez doesn't reveal as a result of this. So if you have Boulez, it's a really good performance. If you want to get Boulez, it's a really good performance. But at the end of the day, we have to make a choice. And my choice is Riccardo Chailly. That's because Berio is Italian and Chailly is Italian, and this is just Italian music, right? No. It's just a great performance. This is the one that it has the concerto, it has the best playing. It has in Electric Phoenix a group of soloists who are absolutely superb, as every bit as good as the Swingle singers were. And it really, I think, gives you the most complete impression of everything that the music contains. And it also comes with Berio's folk songs, which are fabulous, although frequently performed, and Formazione, another one of his great orchestral works. I really urge you, even if you shy away from avant-garde or contemporary music, even though this isn't as avant as it used to be, it's still a remarkable, remarkable piece of music. I think it's amazingly rewarding, and I hope you'll give it a shot, because I think you will too. I really do. It still has the power to startle us, but it also makes, I think, an enormously satisfying artistic statement. So, for Berio's Sinfonia, the one to have is Riccardo Chailly on Decca with Electric Phoenix and the Concertgebouw Orchestra of Amsterdam. Thank you all very much, and keep on listening. Bye-bye.